Hello and welcome to Casually Current, a casual cinemedia podcast. My name is Chris.
My name's Mike.
My name's Justin. Casually Current is where we watch and discuss current film and television.
And today we'll be going over what's on our minds in regards to movie news and then moving into a review for Francis Lawrence's Red Sparrow. In theaters now, starring Jennifer Lawrence. And then at the end we'll be going over our favorite Jennifer Lawrence movie.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, and if you want to follow along with what we're watching, what we're going to watch next, you want to tell us what you think, or, tell us how you're doing, whatever. Yeah, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at casualcinemedia. We also have a Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/casualcinemedia where we talk film and film news and other stuff. And if you just want to email us directly, you can do so at casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Don't forget that we have our iTunes contest going on right now. You write us a 5-star review on iTunes, and then you take a picture and send it to our email or to Facebook, casualcinemedia@gmail.com, like Justin just said. And what we'll do at the end of the month, we will pick one at random, and then we'll let you guys choose a movie for us to review on a bonus episode, so that should be fun.
Yeah.
Right now, your odds are really good, too.
Extremely good.
So go ahead and enter it in, and then you could choose a movie for us to watch, as long as it's within reason and movie length. We're not going to watch Lonesome Dove or whatever.
Yeah, or The Human Condition or Showa too long. And before we get going on Red Sparrow, let's do what's on our minds. And Mike, do you want to go first?
So recently, I've actually been rewatching some movies. I got Filmstruck, which is very exciting. I don't know if you guys actually have Filmstruck yet, but it has a partnership with Turner Classic Movies, so it has some non-Criterion stuff on there as well. And I watched Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Have you guys seen this?
Yes, I have. I didn't watch it with you the first time.
Yeah, I watched it a long time ago, and this is my second time to watch it. And man, that movie is so good. It's got Joan Crawford and Bette Davis, and they play sisters at odds with each other. It's really good and very creepy.
Yeah, it is. I watched it probably 5 months ago, I think, and watched it with my girlfriend because she had never seen it, and she was wanting to watch something, I guess, like a little bit darker and a little bit creepier.
Did she like it?
Yeah, she loved it. She thought it was great, and so did I. Like it confirmed, because it had been probably 5 years since I've seen the movie, 6 years maybe. So watching it again, it's still really great. I think it has one of the most disturbing endings to a movie that I've seen.
Oh yeah, it's super great ending. I didn't remember certain aspects of it, and I'll be vague, but anyone who's seen the movie will know kind of what we're talking about. It's just, it leaves you with this dirty feeling when it's over.
Yeah, it's the main thing that I feel while I'm watching the movie is just being uncomfortable. Like, I guess like Bette Davis's character was like a former child star, and she sang like a very childlike song as a kid that was really famous, and now that she's older, no one cares about her anymore. They haven't cared about her since she was a little girl, and and
she's totally unbalanced.
Yeah, and there's I guess to keep it vague, the very childlike song that she sang when she is older is not as cute.
No, it's profoundly disturbing. Yeah, and uncomfortable. So anyways, yeah, it's about two sisters and a former childhood star being taken care of by a more successful sister, or vice versa. And anyway, there's some drama that happens. And anyway, see the movie. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It's great. Have you seen it, Chris?
Actually, I have not. It's one that's on the list, and it's been on the list forever. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Might have to. I have Filmstruck. I just haven't. There's no app for my TV, so I need to figure it out how to get it on the TV correctly.
My TV, luckily, is a Vizio, which is like a 65-inch Vizio, and it has Chromecast built into it. So I'm actually able to just cast from the phone, from the iPhone app, directly onto my TV, and it's super convenient. It's great.
Yeah, I have a Samsung because that's what I was trying to do. I was going to stream it on my phone and then put it on the TV, but we have a Samsung TV, and it won't let me, and I tried to download an app for it, and then the app would work, except for when I started to try to play the movies, and it would black everything out. So they're onto it, I guess.
You can just buy a Chromecast, you can for $30.
Yeah, I would do that. It's worth it.
Best Buy, and you just plug it into your HDMI port.
Everything has it. It's great. Netflix has it. Hulu has it. Starz has it, HBO has it. Pretty much everything worth watching has a Chromecast option.
And even if it doesn't,
wonderful.
if it's a browser service, like anything that I'm watching on any browser, even if it's like, I watch a lot of soccer and sometimes I have to do like illegal streams of it, and that's not in like a real player with a Chromecast option a lot, and you can just open up your browser and cast your browser to the TV with the Chromecast thing. So you could really watch anything on your TV
with Chromecast.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, criminal.
This segment brought to you by Google Chromecast.
Yeah.
Well,
but not.
It was
I
good.
wish.
It was good knowing you, Justin. They're going to come arrest you for streaming illegal soccer.
So my next movie that I've been watching is actually Unforgiven, the 1992 Best Picture winner with Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, and Gene Hackman. Have you guys seen this movie?
Yes.
Yes, I have. It's been a long time. It's been well over a decade.
Yeah, that's about where I was also.
Unforgiven did come out in 1992, but the award ceremony was in 93 where it won Best Picture. So
there we go. Okay.
That's always a little bit weird to me, but
okay, so
that's the situation.
That makes sense. Yeah, that movie's great.
Was this on Filmstruck as well, or
no? I watched a Blu-ray of it. I have a Blu-ray copy of it, and I was looking for something because even though it's a 4K TV, the difference between 4K and Blu-ray is pretty hard to see for a lot of ways. So I can settle for Blu-rays, and this is the best version of the movie that I know of that exists. Mm-hmm. A lot of it I remembered, but it ended up being better than I remembered it. A lot of the scenes. And I wasn't expecting that because I thought I would kind of sour on it because I'm not really huge on Clint Eastwood as a director, usually. I think that he's kind of like a Woody Allen type at this, where like maybe he'll have a couple good movies a decade.
Right.
But generally, he makes too many movies to make quality ones, I think.
I feel like he started off kind of strong, and recently, he's kind of gone downhill.
Sure. And maybe that's true, but man, does Unforgiven ever hold up. It is so good. It is just about the demons that live inside of us, and we want to be better men, but sometimes you just can't be the man you wish you could be. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to say about that movie. It's just I enjoyed watching it again, and it definitely holds up. So if you get a chance to watch Unforgiven, do that.
Yeah, absolutely. The way it flips a lot of the Western conventions on their head is really great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good. And Gene Hackman just chews scenery up in that movie. He is so good.
Yeah.
So the main thing that I wanted to talk about, actually, there is a prequel movie that has been announced for The Sopranos from the creator David Chase, which is extremely exciting. It's called The Many Saints of Newark, and New Line is developing this right now. It's supposed to be a prequel set in the 60s. All we really know is that it takes place at the time when African Americans and Italians were at odds with one another.
During the race riots.
Mm-hmm. And so that's all we really know. I'm sure they're going to have returning characters. I don't know if we're going to be following Tony Soprano necessarily.
It'd be like about his dad and stuff, I bet.
Yeah. Johnny Soprano and Uncle Junior.
That'd be really cool if it followed Uncle Junior.
Yeah, it feels like it was really fortuitous. We were talking about it last week with Justin and his girlfriend watching starting Sopranos over. I'm excited about this. I like David Chase. It should be interesting. So HBO's not... What does HBO have to do with it, I wonder?
Yeah, I'm not sure at this point.
Yeah, because it's going to get released into theaters. That's kind of interesting that it's not part of HBO.
I'm sure that they will have...
I'm sure they'll make some money.
Part of it, yeah. Like a producing or one of like the companies who has like a bumper up front.
It's got a cool title.
Yeah, The Many Saints of Newark.
Yeah.
Doesn't scream Sopranos, I guess, but it like I guess if that's what's the working title, I guess I was gonna say, would it be like Sopranos the Many Saints of Newark or something like that?
Maybe the movie is not going to be about the actual Sopranos family though, so maybe he just wants to have a connected universe and not necessarily deal with the success of like tying in the name Sopranos.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Sopranos cinematic universe.
Yeah. That'd be weird, but I wouldn't be opposed to it as long as they keep them quality.
Yeah.
What's also fortuitous about this is that you talked about whatever happened to Baby Jane earlier, and in an episode that Nicole and I were watching last night, Tony's talking to his sister about how she wants to move in with the mother, and says, "Go ahead and go do it. You're going to regret it. It's going to be like whatever happened to Baby Janice," which is his sister's name.
That's funny.
Which made me laugh.
Weird, especially considering what I talked about today.
So is that it for you, Mike?
That's it for me.
All right. So Chris.
I went and saw Thoroughbreds. Is a smaller release. It's about two upper-class teenage girls in suburban Connecticut. They rekindle...
I didn't realize you were reading that. My bad. I scrolled away from it.
Yeah, sorry. It's about two upper-class teenage girls in suburban Connecticut who rekindle their unlikely friendship after years of growing apart. It's from this director, Corey Finley. I believe this is his first film, and he also wrote it. The two actresses are really good. It also is Anton Yelchin's, I think it's very possible it's his last role that he did before he passed away.
That sounds sad.
But Anton Yelchin is really good in this. It reminded me of the Peter Jackson movie. Was it Beautiful Creatures, the one with Kate Winslet in it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of that. The camera is really awesome. The way it moves around, because it could very well be a play. It's a lot of dialogue, but the way he keeps you focused on the stuff that's going on by using the camera is really good. We might end up doing a bonus episode on this. I think it's worth going to see.
Is it Heathers meets American Psycho, as the poster proclaims very loudly and boldly?
I haven't seen Heathers, so I'm not sure. Although that's kind of just like a bunch of girls bullying each other is what I imagine. No, I mean, it reminded me of Beautiful Creatures, the Peter Jackson one, where the two girls, except for less sexual tension between the two of them.
Yeah. Actually haven't seen or anything about this movie or even heard the plot until just now, but I did see like the poster when I was in the theater the other day, and I think the poster's actually pretty cool.
Is it the one where they're on the couch? They're each on the couch?
No, it's this one where they're standing there. It's like just the two, I guess the two main girls. With the red
background.
Yeah, and like red pinkish background, and the O in Thoroughbreds is a blood splatter spot.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's Thoroughbreds. Hopefully we'll get to have more time where we can talk about it when the two of you guys have seen it, so... if you guys haven't gone to see it, go see it. It's really good. The next one that I wanted to talk about was Spotlight. I finally got around to watching Spotlight. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about it here. You know, we did the post a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to kind of compare the two movies together. Yeah, Spotlight is a lot better than the post. And the thing I think the reason for it is Spotlight is just about like what feels like normal people doing this thing that's great. Whereas the post, and they were normal people doing their thing, but felt like it was just trying to be so important. And coming away from Spotlight, it was just a bunch of ordinary people doing their job and doing really well at it. Yeah, I thought it was a lot better than the post for sure. And Spotlight was really good. Michael Keaton was awesome. I like Mark Ruffalo.
Michael Keaton was awesome in that movie.
Yeah.
Liev Schreiber?
Yeah, he's really
so
good.
Yeah. Well, I think... to kind of touch on what you were saying a little bit, and I'll keep it brief because this is not a Spotlight podcast, but I think one of the things that makes Spotlight more successful than the post is kind of like what you were saying. In the post, it feels like they're doing something really important, but they constantly remind you of it in the script. Like Tom Hanks will always be there to be like, this is the most important thing because the president's taking a shit on the Constitution or whatever, you know. But in Spotlight, it's literally like everyone except for like the people working on it is kind of like, hey, is this not important? You don't want to work on this. What is this? You know? And then you have the head of the newspaper being like, I don't know. I think our readers would be interested. And that's like the key difference, right? It's because they didn't know that they were onto something that was going to bust the whole narrative of how we looked at the Catholic Church wide open.
Yeah. The conflict only comes from the government, which is more or less an unforeseen force. And
just the
post,
boogeyman.
if I remember.
Yeah,
exactly. And Spotlight, you have other opposition. It follows like the reporters trying to get the story for the most part. Like
and their own turmoil in writing it, and their own feelings and betrayal.
I think Spotlight's much more of a procedural than the post is, and maybe it's not necessarily fair to compare the two. They're both newspaper movies, but yeah, it's very much more of a procedural, and these people felt ordinary to me, you know, and doing a great thing. And yeah, and then some of the stuff that they talked about where like 6% of the priests had molested children, and it turns out that was 90 priests, you know.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the end is really chilling because at the end of Spotlight, there's a big. This is a non-spoiler, but at the end in the credits, there's basically a list of places throughout the world where known sexual offenders who are priests have been relocated or things have been covered up by them.
Yeah,
and that list is depressingly long.
Yeah, but great movie. I'm glad I got to finally see it. Those are my two movies. What's up with you, Justin?
Yeah, I just watched a movie that has got a lot of acclaim, and I've been meaning to watch it for a while. It came out in 2017. It was The Florida Project.
Nice. I hear Willem Dafoe is really awesome in that movie.
He is, and it was directed by Sean Baker, who I believe he also did Tangerine, which I haven't seen.
Me neither, but I hear it's great.
Yeah.
Tangerine's the one that was shot on the phone, right?
Yeah, iPhones.
Yeah, and I don't think Florida Project was, but I could be wrong. I didn't actually look into that because I never, like, the cinematography never really made me question anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think it was shot on an iPhone.
Yeah, so it probably was not shot on an iPhone then.
But yeah, so Willem Dafoe was nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars that just happened, and I think he was the only nomination that the movie got. But it's really, really good. Like I like it a lot more than some of the other films that were nominated for like Best Picture. And it's basically the story of this project housing in Florida.
It's a hotel, isn't it?
That it is a hotel. It's a hotel that's operated by Willem Dafoe, and it's the story of this mother and daughter, and it's mainly focused on the daughter, who's a 6-year-old girl, and they live in this hotel. And what is really interesting about the movie is that it's set in Florida, obviously, and it's set right around Walt Disney World. So like the hotel itself and everything around it, and then just the way that the film is shot and colors are used is like it's this surreally saturated, colorful world, right? But the story is about this extremely poor mother and daughter who are just like struggling to get by. She's struggling to pay, to stay in the hotel, which is basically rent. Technically, like, she's not allowed to live there because you can't live in a hotel, but she's basically paying rent. And Willem Dafoe he's really good in it. And I think one of the things that I think he probably got like the supporting actor for is like he's like a really good person in the movie doing like things that are just really, really likable. And I think like as much as he gives a good performance, he just does so many likable things that it just you want him to get an award for it, for just being great.
Yeah, I really want to see this. I heard that William Dafoe does a really good job of walking that line because he's got to, you can just tell he loves these kids even though he's pretending like they're really annoying him. Yeah,
like he struggles throughout the movie, I guess, because the woman is struggling to pay her rent. But what happens to the child if he evicts them or kicks them out or refuses to do anything? So yeah, right. he struggles with a lot. It's a very interesting character, but I mean the performances are amazing. Like there's several kids in the movie that are main characters, and they're all really good. And it was just, it's really good. I think one of the best things about it, and last thing I guess that I have to say about it, is that the film doesn't necessarily judge anybody, like any of these people. Like the mother is a flawed character, but she's not the bad guy or anything like that. She's not portrayed as like completely being just like an awful person or, a bad person or lazy or whatever. There's a lot of like, I guess, like even keel opinion of her. Like the movie doesn't paint her as like a bad person, I guess.
The movie presents her not in a certain way. The movie doesn't do any judging.
The movie is objective. That's the word I've been trying to find.
Yeah. It leaves it to you to make your own decisions, which is great, I think.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Anything else? Anybody want to say about Florida Project?
Nope, it's on my list.
Okay, and then second thing that I want to talk about, and last thing that I wanted to talk about, was the news that Jon Favreau is signed on to executive produce and write a live-action Star Wars series, and the series is specifically going to be for Disney's new streaming service that they are putting out. And I think that's really all the news. Jon Favreau...
just that he's doing it.
Did Iron Man 2, the Jungle Book remake.
Iron Man? We did Iron Man 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah, he did both. You're right.
Isn't he doing the Jungle Book?
He already... there's 2 Jungle Books. His Jungle Book already came out, and...
No, wait.
He's doing the Lion King.
That's right. I'm sorry, the Lion King. I meant to say that.
Is he doing the Lion King?
Yes. Yeah. So he's doing the Lion King next, and then I guess which I guess is probably already finished filming for Disney, and then I guess Disney will move him right over on into Lucasfilm. Interesting. So do we know when this is going to start filming or premiere?
There's not really a lot of details yet. I mean, we don't even have a Disney streaming service yet. So I would say
2-3 years.
I bet that we get the Disney streaming service in the next... Well, it probably has a lot to do with whether Fox, like all that Fox stuff, when they bought
goes
Fox,
through.
Yeah, but I imagine we get a Disney streaming service sometime early 2019.
Interesting.
2019.
2019.
Yeah, that's a ways off, 2019. But
yeah. So I guess it's probably a good move by Disney if they're going to put this series exclusively on their streaming service. But I guess regardless of that, do you guys like the idea of Jon Favreau doing a live action series for Star Wars?
I don't hate it.
Yeah, I don't hate it. He had something to do with that End of the World show that was on like NBC or ABC with J.J. Abrams. What was it called?
Revolution?
Yeah, Revolution.
Oh, yeah, I heard that show was really bad.
Yeah, it was. And then he also, what was the other TV show?
I don't know, but he directed the first 2 Iron Man movies, so it seems like he could probably put out a pretty tight action movie.
And he directed Elf, which probably has very little to do with Star Wars.
And Zathura, which I liked at the time.
Yeah.
Did he direct Zathura?
Yeah, that was kind of his first.
I do like that one.
Where would you guys like to see this be set? Like what kind of story do you want to see?
I would like to see it in the time between the original trilogy and the current movies that are going on.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I think they fleshed out that prequel era quite enough.
Yeah, let's leave
I
the
don't
prequel
care
stuff
anymore.
alone. I would like to see a thing on the X-Wing fighters, like a TIE fighter, not TIE fighter, but they had a bunch of books, like Rogue Squadron, I think is what the books were called, or that'd be kind of cool, like a World War II type Rogue Squadron where they're going out and doing bombing runs and stuff. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Rogue Squadron was the first book in a series called X-Wing.
Oh, okay.
So like X-Wing was the name of the series, which is not unique at all.
It's also a Nintendo 64 game.
Yeah. And then Rogue Squadron was the first book, and then each book had like a different like subtitle. I think I would really like to see something centered around like the formation of the Jedi, like go way back
before anything we've ever seen before.
Yeah,
that'd be neat.
Yeah, which I guess could probably also coincide with the formation of like Sith Lords and.
Well, there's rumors. There's rumors that the Game of Thrones guys will be doing like prequel era content, like Knights of the Old Republic stuff, which I have never played, but apparently they were really well received video games. So who knows? I'm sure we'll be getting lots of Star Wars announcements in like the next year, and we'll be Star Wars out. But as of right now, I'm excited. I can't wait to hear more details and see kind of what he produces. Hopefully he's more directly involved than something like that Revolution show, which from what I understand, I don't think he was.
I mean, I kind of feel like there's enough Star Wars content for me to be happy, so I don't know that I'm actually like needing this show to be anything or really asking for it.
Yeah, if it's bad, it's fine, but if it's great, I'm excited.
Exactly, yeah. So it could just be icing on the cake, or, I like cake just fine without icing.
Yeah, it could be canceled after one season, and I don't care.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to get canceled. I think if it's on the Disney streaming service,
it'll be like Disney's other show. What's that, like that Marvel show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where it's like no one likes it and no one cares about it, but here we are.
Someone must be
later.
Watching that.
I guess someone is, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's like they're willing it to succeed instead of it actually being something that. Do you know anyone who talks about that show? I don't.
Our friend Ricky, he really liked it. Oh. At least like when the first like 2 or 3 seasons were on.
Well, Ricky, write us in and let us know if it's still good.
Yeah. I don't know that he listens to the show, but if he does, I expect an email. Okay, and real quick before we move out of what's on our minds, we did get the pick from the winner of our Oscar bet competition. He sent in his choice of movie that we're going to cover, and we're going to cover it, I guess, 2 weeks from this episode, so not next week, but the week after. And he chose the 2012 film Berberian Sound Studio.
Which is exciting, because I have never heard of this.
Me neither.
And I have not either. So it's got Toby Jones in it, who is, I like him a lot.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I've seen him in other things, but in this thumbnail I'm looking at, he looks like John C. Reilly, but with red hair. But that's just a very, very, very tiny thumbnail.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see when we watch the movie.
Yeah, Toby Jones. You know who Toby Jones is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Tinker Tailor Soldier. Try.
That's
Tinker Tailor.
That's the one.
Yeah, you got it.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But yeah, I don't know. It looks like it's kind of a thriller horror film, which is good. That'll be exciting to cover.
Yeah, so you guys have 2 weeks to watch it, so you're all caught up when we do our episode on it. I'm excited.
Yep. Thank you, Corbin.
Well, I wouldn't thank him. I mean, he's my arch nemesis, so let's
double thank you, Corbin.
Yeah. Thanks for being Chris's nemesis.
Yeah. Okay.
Nemesis.
Then
I guess nemesis would be plural. Would it? Or would it be nemesises? I don't know. Sorry. Go on.
I don't know. I'm thinking about it now. Nemesis sounds weird.
stupid, but Nemesis also sounds like a word I've never heard.
Nemesis sounds like something you need to get.
Yeah, that sounds
Nemesis. Okay, Nemesis.
Removed.
Okay.
So Red Sparrow.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about Red Sparrow.
Every human being is a puzzle of need. You must learn to intuit what is missing, become the missing piece, and they will give you anything. Take off your clothes. Your body belongs to the state. Since your birth, the state nourished it. Now the state asks something in return. You must learn to sacrifice for a higher purpose. To push yourself beyond all limitation and forget the sentimental morality with which you were raised.
All right, so Red Sparrow, before we get into it, we're going to do our non-spoilery stuff first, and we'll give you a fair warning before we move into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, keep listening until the spoiler alert.
Or if you don't care about spoilers, just keep listening to the whole thing.
No.
Don't. You're banning them?
Yeah.
Oh,
you can't listen to it if you haven't seen the movie yet.
Wow.
Okay, so Red Sparrow, directed by Francis Lawrence, who also directed the Hunger Games sequels. I don't think he directed the first movie, but he did like the two sequels. And he also did I Am Legend and Constantine.
Are you guys a fan of any of those movies?
I have not seen either of the Hunger Games sequels. I don't hate I Am Legend, but I don't think I like it either. And I haven't seen Constantine since it came out.
Yeah, I Am Legend is pretty middle of the road. I think Constantine also maybe... It's been so long since I've seen Constantine.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've only seen the first two Hunger Games movies. Neither one of them were that great. I didn't see the last two. I saw the first two.
Oh.
Well, I think he did the second one, which I think was Catching Fire.
That one was better than the first one.
Was it? Because I only saw the first one and I didn't like it, so I didn't bother with the second.
First one was real bad.
Yeah, he did the was it Mockingjay was the third installment, but they split it up into part 1 and part 2.
Yeah,
so
right.
I guess he kind of did 3.
Yeah, I remember I Am Legend. I remember that was a really bad movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Constantine, I have mixed feelings. I remember liking parts of it, but my taste in movies has changed a lot since the last time I watched Constantine, so it's hard for me to know.
This movie stars Jennifer Lawrence, who is of no relation to Francis Lawrence, even though they worked together a lot with those Hunger Games movies.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah, even in the Hunger Games, I found her appealing to watch. Well, that sounded weird.
I find her enticing.
No, I think she's got
very appetizing to look at. Am I right?
A lot of charisma, guys. Stop making fun of me. But yeah,
she's generally very good.
Yeah,
I think
she's great. Okay, so Red Sparrow is about a ballerina that is recruited into what is called Sparrow School, which is a Russian intelligence service where she is forced to use her body as a weapon. Her first mission is targeting a CIA agent that threatens to unravel the security of both nations. That is the IMDb plot synopsis.
Good job, IMDb.
Yeah.
Our silent host.
Yeah, always helping.
Who wants to go first on what your expectations were going in, or like what you actually thought?
Yeah, let's go expectations first, I guess. If anybody has any, you can jump in and talk about your expectations going in.
Sure. I actually had only seen the trailer a couple times, and it looked like a serious Black Widow movie from like the Scarlett Johansson character from the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
It reminded me of like her backstory, but serious and not fun in the trailer. Yeah, that's pretty much what I got. The trailer is an accurate representation, kind of pretty much the vibe and tone of this movie.
I actually, from the trailer, I got an idea. Like, they had announced that they were going to do a Black Widow movie right around that same time, and I actually thought there was going to be more. It was going to be a little bit more action oriented from the trailer, when it's a little bit more on the spycraft side in the movie.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't realize I was in for like quite such a long espionage type thriller.
I didn't look up anything about it. I literally knew the name and that Jennifer Lawrence was in it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I didn't see a trailer. I did not know that she was going to be speaking in a Russian accent the entire time.
Or attempting to.
Yeah. There was a surprise to me in this, I guess. Or
yeah.
New to me, at least, if not, maybe not surprising. That might be the wrong word. So I didn't know what to expect. I did happen to see the runtime, as I was buying a ticket that it was like almost 2.5 hours long.
I didn't catch
which
up
was
on,
surprising to me.
I didn't catch on that until well into the movie, and I was like, "Good lord!"
Till about 2 hours and 15 minutes in.
Yeah, and I was like, "What is happening?" I just kept thinking, "This is it. This is the last shot."
Yeah.
Nope. So now that we've all kind of gone over our expectations going into it, what did you guys actually end up thinking of Red Sparrow? I think that says a lot right there.
Yeah, there it is. And next week, we will be talking about...
Red Sparrow made me speechless. Yeah, there are parts of this movie that I thought were really good. Yeah, but ultimately, I didn't like it. It wasn't necessarily fun. I went and saw it with a friend, and he was like, after Red Sparrow, I just felt really bad and depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes sense. I think the idea of the thing that bugged me a lot, and it bugs me in other movies as well, when two characters that are Russian and they both know Russian and that's their native language, but we choose to give them Russian accents instead of just speaking in Russian. And I understand why they do it. It's just one of my pet peeves as to, you know, like why even speak in a Russian accent then? You know, like there's this new movie coming out called Death of Stalin, which is about Stalin dying, and it's really pretty funny because what they decided to do is everybody just speaks their natural language or their natural accent. So like Steve Buscemi's in it, and he's talking in an American accent, and all the British people that are in it are speaking in British accents, and so like that is why even bother with the accents if you're gonna, there's no reason to. For me,
I don't know.
Steve Buscemi plays Nikita Khrushchev, who, like, he's a Russian guy, like he's not an American hanging out, and like Jeffrey Tambor is in it. He's speaking like Jeffrey Tambor, and he's supposed to be a Russian head, and all of these other people, and they just kind of embrace it. But it works in that one because it's a comedy.
Yeah, where it's not.
Yeah.
And
I don't think it would
it.
be better if Jennifer Lawrence was rocking an American accent.
Well, to me,
movie.
there's no difference. Like they might as. I don't know. To me,
there's a difference between American and Russian accents for sure. Like look at Enemy in the Gates. That was a movie where they're all in Russia and they all just have
that's true.
British accents, right? And
it's been a long time since I've seen that.
I think they all have like British accents. Or at least not very good Russian accents.
Yeah. It's got Jude Law and Ray Fiennes in it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and Ron Perlman.
I think they're speaking
Ed Harris.
Yeah. So to me, that is worse than this.
No. I guess, and that's just, it's kind of a personal preference, but I would rather them just talk, if they're not going to speak in the language, then there's no reason for an accent. It's kind of silly. It's like the K-19 Widowmaker. They should have all just, because they're all Russian, they should have just used their English accents instead of a Russian accent, because they're not talking to each other in a Russian accent, you know?
I think, is it just does it create a further distraction for you? Like that they are trying to do an accent or doing an accent that they don't have instead of speaking the language.
I guess
so it's take out a distraction.
Yeah, well, maybe part of that's just like it's more distracting to me because you start to nitpick stuff when you're not super happy with the movie or you're not engaged in the movie. So that may be a thing but I do think just in general, when you're doing the foreign films like K-19 Widowmaker, they just use your regular accent. You don't have to speak in a Russian accent. Anyways.
Well, I'll go next. But for the record, I do think that a Russian accent is the lesser of two evils if you're going to speak English in a movie taking place in Russia. Because then, especially when you have characters from like different countries, like you have an American in there, and then you have Russians. So accents matter, right? So it's not like all the characters are Russian. So they can all just speak whatever they want, and we know that, well, okay, everyone's going to be Russian in this. It's like whenever you have Jennifer Lawrence hanging out with, like, American intelligence people, and the accent makes a difference of your nationality, it would be silly if they were both speaking American, in my opinion. Yeah,
for this movie, it would be very confusing, I think, at times. I think what works about in like the Death of Stalin example is that everybody in that movie is Russian.
Or like K-19 should have been, because everybody's supposed to be Russian. Yeah.
Right.
So you can just
exactly.
We could get very confused very easily. I think in this film for the reasons that you're saying, Mike.
And it also would have been, though. I don't think as much as I like Jennifer Lawrence, I don't think her accent was super great.
No, yeah, exactly. So I hear what
it's
you're
almost
saying.
better that point where like, well, let's just have her speaking in English or like do something different.
I think we can all agree like the non-evil is to just make the film with Russian people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or
speaking Russian.
They could have spoken Russian in the Russian scenes.
Yeah.
You know, like where it's just her and her mom. That would have actually been the best option, I think. I think we all agree on that. So
yeah.
Anyways,
sure. So
go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, the movie's okay. I expected to hate it. I caught wind of some negative reviews before the movie went in, so I kind of had an idea that it wasn't great. But that being said, without conceding that I liked the movie, I will say that this movie has a lot of good in it. There is a lot of really, really great stuff in this movie.
Mary Louise Parker is really good.
Yeah. She's got a fun little section in the middle of the movie that is probably the most lighthearted part of the whole movie. but basically, this movie is very slow, very deliberately paced. I don't think it's worth ultimately what it puts you through by the end of it. But that being said, it's a really nice change of pace from like a PG-13 thriller, right? Like this is an R movie that embraces its R rating. It could not exist without the cooperation of its actress being very brave. And I think when it's got really high highs, especially near like the last hour or so. But ultimately, I can't say that I recommend anyone watch it. So that's kind of where I land on the whole thing. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, well, I would agree with your last sentiment for sure. I don't think I can recommend it to anybody to go out of their way to see. It's if you just watch a lot of movies and don't mind watching another movie and ending up with one you don't like or end up seeing one that's ultimately not going to be that great or life-changing or probably one you'll ever want to see again.
If that sounds like you.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, like we don't all watch a lot of movies, so we see some bad eggs and some okay eggs and then some good eggs, and we're fine with that, right?
And that's part of the fun, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Without movies like that, you wouldn't recognize how good something like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is, or some other movie that's better than this that's a spy film. But I agree. I think there's a lot of things to like in it. Like at least like for me, there's a lot of guessing of what's actually going through the characters' minds. Like there's you spend a lot of the movie trying to figure out who's thinking what in it, and that's a lot of where like the fun is for me. And that, as you said, like towards the last half of the movie, all of that really starts to pay off and come together. I do agree that I think the Russian accents are a little distracting. And just kind of add something to the movie that like you can't really ignore. You know what I mean? Like at least for me, like I couldn't sink into the movie and ignore the fact that every Russian was speaking English like 99.9% of the movie. I think there might have been 2 or 3 Russian lines with English subtitles for some reason.
So do you agree with Chris? Do you believe that it would have been better had they just used their natural accents, or do you think if they're going to speak English, it would be better to do the native accent?
I think it would have been worse if they had all done English because, as we said earlier, you couldn't distinguish an American from a Russian.
Right.
And it would get confusing. So I think it would be worse if they had done that. I think it's still not good.
Yeah.
The way that they chose to do it now. Russian is like actually doing it in Russian is the obvious solution to that problem. But I understand they're making a marketable movie that they want people to go see.
It's an American studio making the movie, not...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I absolutely understand why they did it. Yeah. But I just...
Yeah.
It feels quaint in this day and age.
I think there are parts of the movie that seem a little bit too like ham-fisted, I guess, a little bit too like trying a little too hard, and some of that we'll get into in spoilers, I guess, but I guess like mainly the school section of the movie to me when she's actually in the school training, which is within like that's like the first quarter of the film basically, right, within that, and I think that part of it like really didn't work for me. That was when I was losing a lot of interest, and once they move beyond that and she goes into her first mission, that's when it gets interesting. It
kind of diverts from the whole plot of the movie.
Right. I thought I was in for a different second half of the movie based on the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
I thought I was confused as to what her job was actually going to entail.
Right. And I guess just the last thing, real quick thoughts. What you said, Mike, is that where the movie ultimately ends up was not satisfying in any way. Like the journey that the movie takes you on doesn't pay off, I don't think, in a way that like you don't get anything to me that was like any sort of like revelation or makes you think differently about everything you saw before, or you know what I mean? It's just not.
I think it tries to do that, but I don't think it quite gets there.
Right. It tries to have like its and I'm trying to be vague. It tries to have its like aha moment, but not in like a fun way where you're like, oh, okay, I want to watch this again to see what I missed.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's not like Usual Suspects where you there's this big reveal and you're like, it recontextualizes the whole movie.
Right.
So you're like, I need to go back and watch this to see it from the new perspective I have.
Right. Like it tries to have one of those moments, but
Yeah.
I think it ultimately it's not satisfying in the way that I think it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to move into
Is that too
spoilers.
spoilery?
I don't think so.
Okay. Cool.
Just know that it's a spy thriller. There's twists and turns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's inevitably going to be twists and turns. So but yeah, like where we end off, I just like, I wanted more. I wanted it to do more than what it does.
Yeah. Here's what before we move into spoilers, Chris, because I know you're itching. Let me just say, it's not an action thriller. It's very, very much an espionage thriller. There are some really great sequences, though. I can't stress that enough. Like, it sounds like we're being pretty negative on it so far, and we have been.
The opening ballerina sequence, I think, is really good.
Yeah, there's an opening sequence that I had no idea what was coming at the end of it.
Yeah.
But when it happened, I literally like sat up in my seat and made a noise audibly in the theater, and someone behind me laughed.
The person I was sitting next to made a noise. I made a noise.
Yeah, it was. There's about
most of my theater
in.
made a noise,
Yeah.
like a little gasp.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. I think I kind of hit on all the negative points, and I think there is like half of a really good movie in here.
Yeah, it's a 2 hour and 20-minute movie, and I feel like if it were an hour and 45-minute movie, there's a great movie in there.
Yeah, I think if you take out the school part, like,
or just trim it, for God's sakes. Just trim like 30% of this movie out. Get rid of some characters that don't go anywhere. Anyway, so are we ready to move into spoilers, guys?
Yeah, well, real quick, I would say, Justin would say, don't go to the theater.
I thought it was okay. I wouldn't quite go as far to say I like it. I wouldn't go as far to say I didn't like it. It was just decent.
Medium.
Yeah.
And would you recommend people go to the theater, Mike, and see it? Like if they,
if you got Movie Pass, if you've seen everything else, why not? Go see it. I want to support mid-budgeted, R-rated adult thrillers to be made more, even if I don't particularly like this one, because this is a rare bird.
Yeah.
And non-franchise.
Yeah, non-franchise.
Movies.
Well, yeah, exactly. So there's just a lot here I want to support, and a lot that I appreciate that they were trying to do for me.
That's a good point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I don't want to just right out dismiss it because, Jennifer Lawrence is a very brave performance. This is probably the most I've ever been impressed with her, even if I don't like her Russian accent. Because she's going for it, and she's got guts.
That's right.
Yeah, I would say this may be second to like Mother for me.
Yeah, that's true. She did go through the ringer in that movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so spoilers from here on out. They are going to be here.
Yeah. Red alert for Red Sparrow spoilers.
So it's crazy when that Sparrow
set off the nuclear bomb?
Yeah, set off the nuclear bomb. That's why it's called Red Sparrow.
Because he killed everyone.
Clever. Okay, so let's just start at the beginning. I think like the opening sequence, we get this ballet dance number where we see Jennifer Lawrence, and we're intercutting it with the guy who we later learn to be the American CIA guy, and he's doing something we're not quite aware, but he's meeting up with somebody doing some sort of exchange.
And he's played by Joel Edgerton, by the way.
Yeah, and I guess we're intercutting between the two, so you get this kind of like this classical music behind this sort of secretive deal that's going on, and then also just kind of like generally a beautiful ballet sequence.
Mm-hmm. And so like the I, Tonya, from what I understand, the I, Tonya, like CG when she was dancing wasn't quite as good.
This movie put that movie to shame.
Yeah, I thought that I couldn't tell. Like you're looking for the face and you're like, I don't know where it is.
Yeah. I didn't realize that they did that in this one, because I mean I realized it in a heartbeat in I, Tonya, because it's not good in I, Tonya.
Yeah, no, it's super distracting in I, Tonya. Very terrible.
And so specifically, we're talking about they've replaced an actual figure skater's face with Margot Robbie's face in I, Tonya, and they did the same thing. They had a ballerina dancing.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Put J-Law's face on it.
J-Law. I know that she took some ballerina classes and stuff, but I imagine she couldn't do all that. Yeah, so they put her face on top of some ballerina.
It looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically both sequences are kind of intercut together, and they both reach a climax at the same time. And in one of them, Joel Edgerton's CIA or secret agent character has to protect basically like his informant, and ends up getting in trouble by firing a gun when he really shouldn't have. And then Jennifer Lawrence ends up having like the male ballet dancer partner basically crush her leg at the very end of it. And that's kind of what we're all talking about, where everyone in the theater, you could just see the discomfort, or you could just feel it.
Yeah, it reminded me of when I was in the theater watching 127 Hours.
Oh, yeah.
And when he has to, like some of the first things that he does to, like, break his arm and start to remove it, like, just, like, the sound and the intensity of it, it was just, like, it's kind of chilling.
It felt like one of those movies where like it's designed to make the audience just cringe at that part. Kind of like what you're saying in 127 Hours. The other movie that comes to mind, but it's a different kind of cringe, would be like Borat or Bruno. I remember those movies had like the biggest audience reactions of any movies I've ever been to.
Right,
but
that makes sense.
Yeah, but I wasn't expecting a reaction like that in this movie, you know? So I think seeing it in theaters alone for just having other people around you react to that would be pretty fun.
Yeah, definitely. So basically she gets permanently injured, or at least to the point where she's no longer going to be a ballerina dancer from this injury. And her uncle, who works for, I guess, like the Russian government.
Yeah, the bad guys, Russian bad guys, the official bad guys in charge of stuff.
Yeah.
That's the official name.
Yeah,
I work for the Russian bad guys.
Basically, she can't pay to like keep her mom.
The ballerina school
apartment.
was paying her, so once she's not a ballerina anymore, no money.
Yeah, and the uncle comes and recruits her to the Sparrow school, which essentially she has no choice in it, right? Because it's either
that or jail and homelessness.
Well, they send her on the mission first, like a mission, and then at that point, they're like, well, we're either going to have to kill you because you saw too much, or you can join the school and become a...
Right, so
exactly.
That's another thing that I felt was like too many steps at the beginning. Too many steps. Like, so she gets hurt, and then she goes and gets revenge on some people that wronged her, and then she gets roped into being blackmailed because she hurt those people. And then once she goes on the mission that she was being blackmailed about, they blackmail her again to join Sparrow School.
Yeah.
And
so, one of those steps need to be gone, if not two of them.
Right, exactly. That's too many steps to get to, like, okay, I had no choice. I had to join Sparrow School. Give me that after step one. Don't make me sit through 30 minutes of crap before she gets to Sparrow School, where we're about to spend 45 more minutes.
Right. And I think with, like, your main characters, you want them to be making a choice for something like this. Like, is it as interesting if, like, she's following a path that she doesn't necessarily have any choice in, right? And in this movie in particular, it's like, what if she was just looking out for her mother? What if, like, she needed the apartment and, like, the medical bills paid for her mother, so she makes the choice to go to Sparrow School simply for that? Does that get you on board with her character more, like, and you like her and you want her to succeed more at that point? Do you guys think that would make it better than, like, I guess, like, putting her in a position where she has no choice? She either goes to jail, gets killed, or goes to Sparrow School.
I don't know. I didn't much care for her character at all at any point, to be honest with you. But I think it would have been more effective. Well, here's what I do like, because there's a moment at the beginning where she makes a clear choice to go down the wrong path, and we know when it's happening. Now, she doesn't dream of the path that it's actually going to send her on, but I do like the idea that it was her own vengeful actions that started this whole thing, and all of this could have been avoided had she just kept her temper, even though she had been wrong. I think it's interesting that we could go through this with her, and we could want her to get her revenge, and then now we're stuck with her the rest of the movie with these consequences for her revenge, right? I like that idea. I don't think it was explored in a satisfying way. Where, like, there's never a moment in the movie where she thinks back on that first moment where she made the wrong decision to, like, hurt the people that wronged her, We never see her be like, man, I shouldn't have done that. Like, so I feel like she never learns anything.
Right. Well, so then the movie becomes about, or her being in the Sparrow School becomes about the fact that she's seen them kill somebody. And so that's why she's in Sparrow School, right? Like it takes away from the idea, like you're saying, that she's there because of a mistake she made.
Right.
Because of a choice that she made.
They could have hit that point home, right? They could have been like, you're here because you saw this, but all of this started because you made that decision. They could have nailed that point home harder, I think. Like, they could have been like, yeah, we're not giving you a choice, and yeah, we're clearly the bad guys, and we're taking away your agency to choose because we're blackmailing you. But also, you know deep down that you wouldn't even be in this blackmailed situation had you just kept your cool. But they don't ever mention that, right? They're just like, okay, move on to the next thing. We're blackmailing you for a whole nother step now. When they had something on her at the beginning, they could have just blackmailed her for hurting those people.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know. So I think
what it comes down to is just that, like, for me, it was boring that, like, she didn't have a choice because of something that they did. Like,
right.
They were holding the murder against her. It's like, it's more interesting, like you said, when it's either like she did something bad and now has to deal with all these consequences because specifically and maybe exclusively because of what she did, or, you know, maybe in the other case, like, that she is doing it for, like, her mother. Like, either way, it's like, it's her choice and, like, directly a consequence of her choice either way to, like, go to the school. I think that's more interesting than being forced to by somebody else through somebody else screwing you over.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. Too many steps at the beginning. I agree with everything you guys said.
So let's talk about the actual school, because I think we all had some issues with that.
Yeah, I think the school, the training part of it is not needed. You know, like, I think it could have gotten a montage. Or it doesn't have to be a montage, but, like, it's not interesting necessarily to me. The scenes, I guess they're trying to show us, like, how they are using their bodies as weapons. They're trying to show us that. And I know it's based on a book on a group that was supposed to be real, a Russian group. So maybe that's why it's in there.
Well, sure, this kind of espionage is real, and it is effective. So it's not bad inherently.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I just didn't need it. Like, the main plot is with Joel Edgerton. You know, like that, and the school is a deviation that I just feel like doesn't really necessarily explain very much to me about who she is, and it doesn't do anything or further characters or further the plot for me.
See, I disagree there. I'm going to push back a little bit on that, if you don't mind. So
I do.
While I agree that it's not good, we're both in agreement there that we both want this school sequence to be different. I disagree that it doesn't not show you anything about her character or further anything. I think it's just entirely too long, right? So she goes, like, what does she call it? She's like, you sent me to learn how to be a whore or something like that. Like, so that's what it is, right? So you're learning how to seduce and manipulate based on your body and your sexuality. And so while she's there, she's never able to do that. So we do learn about her character that she's strong-willed, she's clever, she doesn't cave whenever she's supposed to, even whenever the system tells her she should. She has her own moral compass when it comes to that aspect, right? That being said, it's heavy-handed and not worth the time, but I do think that it does try to tell you that about her. But basically that she's trying to proceed in the system her own way. She's good enough at reading people that she can get around what other people in that school probably can't get around.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and I think that's what they're trying to say, but I don't know that it does it in such a way that it's that I feel that it's that important. She defies the teacher. I don't know how she ever actually gets in, like, out into the mission. I guess because she's got an uncle.
Why didn't she just fail out and get shot in the head right away? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like, she never does what the school asks her to do. The school part doesn't, for me, just doesn't fit into the rest of the movie.
Right. I think it would have fit more had she actually, like, had to use some of those skills once she actually got out on her mission.
Well, I mean, I think she kind of uses them, but she never does. She can read people. That's kind of the deal.
Right, but she could do that beforehand. So, like, she doesn't learn anything in the school that she couldn't have done. Like, we could have spent time, instead of, like, her learning how to seduce someone, which she doesn't do,
she doesn't learn how to do that in the school.
Yeah, we could see her learn how to shoot or learn how to like make forged documents and do other spy stuff.
Yeah.
And then kind of touch on that like aspect of it, because I think that's an important part of the script. That's part of like the this feminism thing that I think they're trying to go for, right? Which is just like she's a woman in a system trying, like being told how to use her body, and then through the course of the movie she learns how to say, screw all those people, I'm using my body how I want to. And so there's supposed to be a feminist message in here, so the stuff is needed for that theme. I just think that it's a little clunky.
Yeah, I think it seems a little simple, like the school, overly simplified to me. Like it's all about like, how do you satisfy this person sexually to get what you want? Seems like almost the entire focus, right? And
or
like
how to
you
see
said,
what
like,
they're
why...
truly after. Yeah, like how to like, on a base level what they really want, even broken down like in more simple terms than sex.
Yeah, but it seems to always be revolved around sex to me.
Well, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, what about the other spy stuff that she might need to know? Like, do we not? I guess we don't need to see any of that, because maybe we're conditioned enough for spy movies. But I mean, the big thing for me about it was that it seemed like they were trying to fit in as many scenes, because these sexual encounters that the school orchestrates for them, or whatever, like it seemed like they wanted me to be really impacted by those. Mm-hmm. Like really, they're supposed to be like really
disturbing.
Disturbing. I was gonna say shocking, but I guess disturbing is probably the better word. And I think they're just like a step below what they wanted to me. Like they never quite had the impact that I felt like it was supposed to have. I thought they were a little weak, I guess.
I think it's weak because she never has to do anything, right? She's always outsmarting it, and then instead of being like, what the hell, shoot this girl, she's not obeying.
Yeah,
they're just
there's
like,
never any there's never any real consequences.
She's a spark plug, that one. Maybe maybe tomorrow she won't be.
Yeah, and then like we also spend a whole scene, a whole like lengthy class scene, meeting this other student who's next to her, who's like the girl with the kind of like really chopped off haircut, mm-hmm. who they bring up and they want her to do something. I can't remember, and she flat out refuses to do it and starts crying. Mm-hmm. Was there any reason to like get to know her, or even like? Because they focus on her, like we get close-ups of her throughout the rest, and it's like it seemed like this character that was gonna actually add up to something, and like I just don't know why we spent an entire scene with like that girl having to get up in front of the classroom and then not being able to do what she says. I may have missed it, but did we get other scenes where she suddenly wasn't in the class anymore?
No, I think that's part of the problem, right? So like I'm not opposed to having other students struggle with it at first, and then as long as we like see them starting to come around to it, but Jennifer Lawrence doesn't. She's the one that just can't, or something like that. But instead the only times we see anything, we never see anyone successfully do anything in that classroom. Anything that anyone is told to do, no one does correctly. Like,
except for the one guy that undresses.
The one guy takes off his clothes, and that's about it. Other than that,
which is fairly weak.
Yeah, other than that, like people are told to come in, and then girl characters are told to satisfy the men characters, or all some kind of perverted stuff, and no one does anything. They just follow their own way and say they can't do it, and then the lady, she never gets mad or raises her voice or threatens violence. She's just like, maybe tomorrow you will try better, or something like that, and then it's
which is
lame.
Charlotte Rampling, who was in The Night Porter, which is
perfectly cast for something like this, I think.
Yeah, which is maybe part of why I expected so much from
like
those
Charlotte
scenes,
Rampling's
like so much
in this.
more.
She's notorious for this kind of like perverted sexual dark stuff. Nope.
But yeah, so I think more than I think it wasn't necessary. Like I think some of it could have been interesting, and they could have done some stuff with it, but it feels like a big swing and a miss.
And like you said earlier, and I think we've all kind of mentioned at one point, like learn how to do something besides sexually seducing kind of stuff, right? Do spy stuff. Learn how to, like, because this is a ballerina. I want to see how she learns to become a spy, because later in the movie, it's pretty obvious she didn't learn anything about becoming a spy because she sucks at it. But then again, or does she suck? I don't know. That's another problem.
Well, that's the question.
Yeah.
Well, she fools everybody, so apparently she doesn't suck, or everybody else is just on a worse level than her.
Yeah, something. Anyway, she graduates the school, and she gets a mark, which is Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the main.
It's where the movie comes alive, in my opinion.
Like I said, that's where it gets interesting, because I think you get a whole lot of of wondering whether or not she's actually doing the mission, or if she's screwing it up.
Right. Yeah, a lot of like I'm doing this, and I'm going to go to the other side and do this. And then she goes to the other side, and she's like, I told them that I was going to come here and tell you this. And it's just like, hang on, what is going on here?
She's a quadruple agent.
Yeah. And you think it's could be just like her plan, I guess. Like, I guess that's what you get out of the school scenes, is where she gets what the school wants her to get without actually doing what she has to do, and you think are doing what's expected of her. And I guess you spend a lot of time wondering if that's what she's doing there. Like, for example, when she signs up for like the pool membership so she can have her encounter with the American guy, she uses her real name instead of her fake spy name, right? And I guess you're never sure, is that like her intentionally trying to get the attention of the American because that's what he thinks, or is this part of her plan to pretend to be going against her spy thing and actually give her real name, while that's actually just part of fooling the American, right?
Well, there's a lot of stuff like that, right? Where at first
that's where the fun of the movie comes in, I think.
Right, and to the movie's credit, there are certain, like, when the movie is over, it makes you look back at certain scenes and be like, was it incompetence, or was it her trying to fake incompetence to seem like a wounded little bird that men would want to, put their own thoughts and motivations onto, Mm-hmm. So that aspect of it is really good, I think. There's certain scenes, I think, with her uncle that I think are really effective, too, the uncle character. He's a good villain. I just think that maybe he's a little either underused or overused, and I'm not sure which.
Yeah. I would say that he felt overused on some of the things that, like, there being, like, this hint that he has a sexual attraction to her. Mm-hmm. And like I guess like
I would have liked a bit more subtlety there.
Yeah, because he knew her as a child. There's this idea both given to her from her mom and actually things that happened that like there was a bit of a pedophileness to him, that he's always been attracted to her as a young girl,
right.
And definitely is now that she's a grown woman. And I think that's all like pretty irrelevant, and it's just they kind of went on a middle ground with it. They played it safe enough where they didn't get too weird with it, or too disturbing with it, but used it too much to just we could just let it go or let it drop off. I think you could have done without it and like just have him be like just the villain without all that. I think would have been better. And then just having him being around more, like have a little more presence in what's going on.
Yeah, well, it just seemed like his plan was stupid. I don't understand why anyone would humor this. Like, hey, my niece, I want her to become a sparrow that normally is very like special criteria. She doesn't have any military training or any kind of violence training whatsoever. She's a dancer who got her leg all messed up. She's the perfect candidate, guys. Because you see, I can blackmail her. Why not just get an assassin or like another sparrow who's already good at it? You know, like why her? It doesn't make any sense to me.
My thing, I don't think that these are necessarily need to be military trained,
but maybe someone who's not so
students.
Famous. Like literally everyone recognizes her.
Well, and that may be a point, but I think that like their main thing is to get to like gathering of information, sleeping with somebody, and using their sexuality as leverage in order to get information. So I don't necessarily think that they need to be trained like militarily wise. I don't
think the intention is for them to ever get into any sort of like fighting or gun shootouts. Or anything like that. Like it's things like on her first mission, she's supposed to sleep with a guy, and while he's not paying attention, swap phones, right? Which I can understand. I do also agree with your point. Is like I don't know that we ever get enough of like why Jennifer Lawrence, like why her character, why does she the one that needs to do it, and like worth blackmailing her to do it.
I think just get someone else.
And that could be. But the thing, I think they know that she can read people. And she's attractive, and that's like kind of all the reason they needed. And ultimately, I don't know that it doesn't really matter that much.
Moving forward, I guess like going with the idea that she's doing these things, like she's telling the Americans what she's doing essentially, but then she's telling the Russians that the reason she's telling the Americans that is so that she can get closer and gain trust. But like that keeps going, and that kind of is like this like spiral throughout the movie. We keep spiraling down and don't know like where it's gonna end up. I guess, did you guys ever think like this is her first real mission post Sparrow School, and she has no proven track record, and like they're putting a lot of trust into her, right? Mm-hmm. Did you guys ever feel that like that was like underdeveloped, like the amount of trust that they put into her?
I mean, yes, if I think about it too hard, but in the movie, since she like only deals with her uncle and it's like more of a personal relationship between those two anyway, I didn't get distracted too much by that aspect of it. I was still just distracted by the first point, which is just like I just don't understand why her to begin with, much less why put so much trust in her. So I was still not on board just from that first question, so I didn't even get to the second question in my brain.
Fair enough. So, but I guess that kind of goes with the first question. Eventually, like, the Russians think that Jennifer Lawrence has betrayed them, and so they start torturing her, and we get this kind of sequence where they're asking her over and over again. Some guy got killed, right? I'm struggling to remember who it is, but someone gets killed, and the Russians think that she gave that person up.
Oh, right.
It's the
Mary Louise.
Mary Louise Parker.
Yeah, Mary Louise Parker. Like, yeah, so they have a sting planned.
And I did really like that sequence with Mary Louise Parker where at the very end she gets hit by the bus. That was another gasp moment.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah. And I thought Mary Louise Parker was really good.
I think like maybe like 2 seconds before it happened, I was like, oh, okay, I see what's about to happen here. But like not enough time for me to like brace myself really.
Yeah, it's still very surprising.
Yeah. But the Russians take her into custody and think that she's blown the whole thing, and they're questioning her about whether or not she gave the whole thing up to the Americans. And so we get the sequence where they're torturing her. They like hang her with her arms behind her head and are pouring like cold water on her in a cold room, and they play like loud metal music and stuff, and then they're hitting her. Did that torture sequence work for you guys? Was that good?
The part that probably got me the most was when they took the cloth and then it was like a nightstick and they beat her with that, when they're like they kept hitting her, and I thought that was pretty rough, but other than that it wasn't
nothing I haven't seen in a James Bond movie.
Yeah, I thought the stuff where they're hitting with a hammer was like executed well in the sense that like I really felt like the hits.
Yeah. The part Chris is talking about was pretty rough. I was like, oof.
Yeah. But overall, I don't know. I just didn't. It was one of those things that just felt just a little bit short of being as great as it could have been. Like and then it climaxes with like the part where the girl shows her a laptop video of her shooting someone else. It's the guy that she's been working with, not the American guy, but the one Russian guy, right?
Mm-hmm. And she asks him the same question. Like, did you give this person up? And then she shoots him after he says no still. And then, of course, she goes and does it. I actually thought that was pretty good, too, because she goes back behind and, like, did she... And I thought that Jennifer Lawrence was going to say yes at that moment because I thought, she was going to be... She thought she was going to be killed.
It's an interesting moment. It just felt... I don't know. It didn't quite get there for me. It didn't feel like an escalation from her being hit in the face as much.
You know what kind of gets on my nerves in movies is like the scene whenever someone's going to shoot somebody and then they end up like pulling the trigger and it's empty and you hear like the click of like an empty gun. Is that necessary, really? Like, does that make them any more... It's not like they hear the click, because like they wouldn't hear the click anyway. They would just get shot and die. That seems like an overplayed moment. I feel like that happens in a lot of movies, and I feel like...
the way I took it in this movie was that the lady pulling the trigger didn't know whether the gun was loaded or not. Like, she was just told, go in there, pull the trigger, She didn't know whether the gun was loaded, is how I took it.
I think in this movie, I think it is overplayed, actually. Like,
but...
In a lot of movies, I understand the psychological impact of, like, if you're expecting a gunshot and you hear the click, like, it may be one of those things where, like, a life goes into slow-mo before you die, and you hear the click, and then the gunshot happens, and I could understand that the click would, like, make you jump if you're expecting a gunshot.
Mm-hmm.
I think what doesn't necessarily work in this is that I don't understand the difference between Jennifer Lawrence not getting shot and the other guy getting shot, because they ask the same question, and it's just like it feels plotted, like scripted, like, well, Jennifer Lawrence can't get shot here. It doesn't.
They
quite
need her
work.
more. That guy can't go seduce Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll buy that, I suppose.
In theory, I agree with you, which is just like there's a lot of scenes in that movie where it feels like she can't die because she's Jennifer Lawrence and she's the protagonist. Like in Sparrow School, I just kept wanting Charlotte Rampling to like torture her or shoot her for not cooperating because I felt like that's what would happen.
Yeah, well, that's what they threaten.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Like literally with dialogue, they say that.
Yeah, and then you find out, oh, she's not actually in any danger. Apparently,
yeah,
she can just be as bad a student as she wants to be, and she will graduate.
All right, so do you want to move on?
Yes. My favorite sequence in the movie, it's the scene where like the hitman guy that works for the Russians actually comes to Joel Edgerton's apartment. So like Jennifer Lawrence wakes up in the middle of the night and she sees that Joel Edgerton's character is not there, and she goes into the living room and sees him being tortured. And the guy actually has like a skin graft. What do you call those things? Like a skin graft machine?
Skin peeler.
Yeah. It's basically for skin grafts, so you peel sections of skin off in like perfect squares and segments, and it's made to like reattach at other places. So he's basically using this as like a torture device on Joel Edgerton's character, trying to get him to give up the informant. And man, that scene is so suspenseful.
Yeah.
I was just so uncomfortable the whole time.
When she takes the skin graft and goes to his inner thigh, it like that just makes like the back is one thing, or the shoulders, but the inner thigh, please no.
Yeah. I think one thing this movie does really well is like that sort of like pain, impactful stuff like that is all.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Super effective.
Yeah. Anyway, so she removes a piece of his skin, and then she makes her move, right, to like turn on the guy, and then she tries to free Joel Edgerton, who's got gashes in him and from having his skin removed. And then they bust out knives. Yeah, so that is one thing in pretty much any movie that gets to me is knife fights. Like, I can deal with gun fights, I can deal with fist fights, I can deal with pretty much any kind of violence, but knife fights, it seems so violent if done correctly, like when someone just gashes someone's skin open.
Yeah.
To me, that is so much more effective than like filming a gunfight.
Yeah, just there's a pain level that it seems like it would have that would be worse than a gun or being like fully like sliced open with a sword. There's something like small and minute about the pain that, I don't know, it just seems like more.
Is like a paper cut? Is that kind of?
I think so. Whereas like, yeah, like I need to pull a really weird example, but I believe it's Jackass 2, where they do the paper cuts in the hotel, and like that's way harder to watch than any of like the stuff where they're like jumping off of something and like falling onto like something that's like could actually like hurt them and break their legs and stuff. But when they do paper cuts, it's like it just seems a lot worse to me.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I did like the sequence though, that whole sequence, and you're not sure where she's standing because as soon as she sees it, she tortures Joel Edgerton, so you're not sure exactly whose side she's on in this scene. So yeah, I enjoyed that sequence quite a bit.
It's one of the peaks, like the really good peaks of like what side is Jennifer Lawrence on? Is she doing A or is she doing B? You know, and it's really suspenseful, and
it's super suspenseful, and it's sad at first too because you're like, no.
Yeah, and I if I'm gonna nitpick the scene a little bit, I feel weird that like she hits the guy over the head and knocks him down. I think she might have hit him twice, and then she goes and like starts to try to cut the guy free. Whereas like
she should have landed on with a fucking knife.
I know, she should have just like in the beginning we've seen her when she takes out the two people, like she just beats them like a ton with like her like little walking stick, and like she should have done something like that. Like it felt a little bit unrealistic. Like I would have expected her to do that as like from like her character, you know, as opposed to like hit him a couple of times, he falls down, and then she runs and tries to untie the guy real quick before he gets back up.
Gets up real slowly.
Yeah, when he gets up and can grab a weapon and defend himself.
Yeah.
But it does lead to that knife fight scene, which I agree is really good. And that whole fight scene it felt really realistic. It didn't feel overly elaborate or choreographed. Yeah.
It reminded me of, did you guys ever see The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah.
I did not.
There is like there's a fight between two characters in that movie with like an axe and a knife.
At the very end.
Yeah, and man, it is brutal. In the same way, but like in a good suspenseful way, where like when someone gets hurt, you're just like, fuck. It just makes you hurt.
For sure.
Which is good in a fight scene like that. I wasn't expecting anything as suspenseful as that scene, right, where you're not sure where her loyalties lie, and you're not sure what's going to happen to Joel Edgerton's character, because he's just not important enough to where like he could die right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this movie could go that way and it wouldn't feel out of place. So I like movies like that where like genuinely for a while you're not sure how it's going to unravel.
Yeah, and this is certainly the highest high point in the movie for me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is the best, most suspenseful scene in the movie for sure.
And so they're pretty injured from their knife fight because they both get cut up a good bit. And
especially him.
Yeah. Ugh. And they're in a hospital, and Jennifer Lawrence encounters Jeremy Irons' character, who is a Russian guy, one of the guys that she works for, and we find out that like he's the mole that she's been trying to, like, that's the information she's been trying to get from the American guy the whole time, was to find out who like the American mole in the Russian government was, and it turns out it's Jeremy Irons, which is, I guess, one of the big twists, quote unquote, in the movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, that wasn't necessarily a big twist, like because it's the only other major star in the movie.
Sure, it's not surprising.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying.
So it's a twist, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, which I guess that was going to be my question to you guys, was like, were you surprised at all by that?
I don't know if I didn't see it coming, but I also wasn't thinking about it at that point.
Yeah, I think it didn't. Yeah, I don't think I was thinking about it either. But it wasn't. Yeah. Didn't feel like a good. If I had been thinking about it, it didn't feel like it would be a good surprise or anything like that.
Right. Like if I had stopped for 2 seconds to think like, oh yeah, we still have this unresolved thread, I probably could have been like, okay, who do we got left?
Right.
And boiled it down to Jeremy Irons or, someone else. Like,
maybe the uncle.
Maybe that, the guy from Game of Thrones.
Ciarán
one of those
Hinds?
two. Yeah, one of those two, maybe. But I don't know. I didn't really think about it too hard.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to see what you guys thought about that. So we can move on to the big ending where they're supposed to exchange Jennifer Lawrence, who the Americans now have in custody, for the American mole, who Jennifer Lawrence has, quote, given up to the Russian government. She's told him the identity of the mole, which we know as Jerry Irons.
Jeremy.
Which is, that's what a film professor used to say in film school whenever he would talk about Jeremy Irons. He'd always call him Jerry Irons. So I always called him that for like years as a joke. And it just slipped out again years later.
Wow.
But anyways.
What a touching story.
Thank you. Yeah, so we get the big switch scene where they're going to trade off, I guess, hostages. And we find out that Jennifer Lawrence has actually told them that the mole is the uncle.
Her uncle, yeah.
And that was big twist to number 2.
Yeah. And then we get a little montage with like the Ocean's 11 moments where you kind of like see the evidence of like everything she did to set this up, like planting evidence in his house, and like when she was actually in this house earlier in the movie and you thought it was just this conversation that meant this, it turns out she was actually there for a reason, that kind of thing.
And you realize it was all like part of her plan. And also at Jeremy Irons' suggestion, she's using all of this, like she's turning over the real mole to actually become an American mole in the government and get the Russians' trust.
Well, isn't that her way out? So Jeremy Irons suggests that she turn him in, and then the Russian government will trust her. But because she doesn't turn in Jeremy Irons, she turns in the uncle. That's her way out, because they don't need an American mole in the Russian government anymore, right? And she gets that money from the government, so she doesn't have to do this work anymore, right?
Well, I don't know. I took it as she's still going to be doing it.
Yeah. Now the Americans just have 2 moles in the government.
Yeah,
she's found a way to be even smarter than the Americans, smarter than Jeremy Irons, who wants to give up his life so she can become an even more trusted American mole, which I don't know that makes much sense, because again, this is only her first mission, and we assume Jeremy Irons has been around for a while. Why they would suddenly trust her more, but irrelevant to that, like she finds a better way where she not only gets revenge on her uncle, she also becomes an American mole, and now there's 2.
Yeah, and she keeps old Jerry alive.
Yeah.
Old Jerry Irons.
Yeah.
And they can be buddies.
Yeah. And that just, and I guess that goes to what we were saying in the non-spoiler section, that like where the movie leads up to, at least like to this point, and with that, it like didn't satisfy me. It didn't feel like and surprising in any way. Like it didn't lead me to, I guess let me put it another way. Like if you are spending the whole time of the movie thinking like either A, she's actually doing all of this to fuck the Americans and do what the Russians want, or B, she's actually fucking the Russians and trying to work with the American. Like I almost want the twist to like add up to C, like the whole time I'm like, is she doing A? Is she doing B? And then like, it just turns out she's doing A. Right, or no, B. I don't remember which one, but like
I think you could argue that C is just looking out for her and her mom,
which is kind of what she's doing.
But that's
which is kind of what she's doing.
Yeah, that's what she's doing already. And I don't know. It's just like it just felt like okay, it was A, right? So like it was one of the two things that I suspected, as opposed to
it was A,
thing.
but with some extra murky gray area thrown in there, so that way you don't know that it's A for quite some time, even though you're pretty sure it's A the whole time.
Yeah. So it just didn't surprise me, didn't lead to anything, and sometimes that can work. Like if we had gone a little bit past that, where she's doing what she's doing now, and like that could be satisfying. Like Shutter Island is the example I think of when it comes to like what's actually going on, and what the big twist is supposed to be is what you actually think is going on the whole time.
Right.
But the movie goes like another like 15 minutes further and kind of makes it all satisfying. So you have to go down that like twist alley to like end up in like a satisfying place, but this didn't give it to me. Like whatever the stuff that happens after.
Yeah, that makes sense. They tried to do a lot there. It's very ambitious, but ultimately it doesn't all add up to like one satisfying narrative, in my opinion. No,
and I think it's really just that ride of trying to figure out what she's doing, you know, the like peaks and valleys of that, like particularly that torture scene. That stuff's really fun, but outside of that, I think it's just not that great of a movie. I didn't hate it. It was maybe too long.
No, definitely too long. That is my main complaint. In fact, I might like it a whole lot better if they just cut down some of the unnecessary stuff and just made this movie about 25 minutes shorter.
Yeah, absolutely. Great parts in it, but that doesn't necessarily add up to a great whole.
All right. Anything else about Red Sparrow, gentlemen?
No, I don't think so. I think
All
I'm
right.
good.
And with that, do we just move on into our favorite Jennifer Lawrence movie?
Yeah, let's do it. What is you guys' favorite Jennifer Lawrence movie?
I'll go first. I think my favorite Jennifer Lawrence movie would be David O. Russell's Silver Linings Playbook.
God damn it.
With Bradley Cooper.
Is that what you were going to choose, Chris?
Yeah. Is that what you were going to choose?
It's clearly the best.
That's what I was going to choose too. Yeah. So we can make this a real boring
let's
segment.
Unanimously, because I think that is her best role.
Yeah, she's got dark hair, which is already a plus. She isn't in a Hunger Games movie at that point, or she's not Mystique. Like, I don't know. I think at that point I had seen Jennifer Lawrence in Winter's Bone, but she was like peak like X-Men, peak Hunger Games, and it didn't look like she was going into a place that I was going to enjoy, career-wise. So it was nice to see her show up in something really good with some heart into it, where she gets to do more than just, I don't know.
Yeah, I think she has some...
Run around.
Yeah, I think she has some other good movies. Like, I think she was really good in Winter's Bone. That's kind of where she, got on the map. Like Crazy is a good movie that she's in, I think. She's
not in that movie very much, though.
No. But I guess I was going off of, like, her best movie as much as her best performance. Like, I really would say, like, maybe one of her best performances is Mother might actually hold a candle up to Silver Linings Playbook in terms of her performance. I think Silver Linings Playbook is like a way better movie. As much as I liked Mother, but yeah, it's a really great movie. That was, I think it was my favorite of like the Best Picture nominees for the year that it was nominated, which it came out in 2012, but it was the 2013 Oscar ceremony. But it was Argo won that year for Best Picture, which I actually I still haven't seen, but I've heard is good. And actually, like looking over, like Lincoln was nominated, Zero Dark 30, Django Unchained, Life of Pi.
Zero Dark 30 for me is by far the best of that group.
Interesting. Actually, looking at it now, my favorite of the nominees was Beasts of the Southern Wild. I think that movie is amazing. But
I haven't seen that one.
But yet. Silver Linings Playbook is like a very, 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 very close second, and it's really good.
Yeah, her performance though like makes that film.
I think everyone like. Her, Bradley Cooper, Robert De Niro.
Oh, they all do a good job, but for me, like, I don't know.
Yeah, Robert De Niro.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it too. Her performance, for me, makes the movie. Everybody does a really good job in it, but ultimately, I think, rides on her charisma, I think. But, yeah, so I think, hands down, her best role.
We all agree. If you haven't seen Silver Linings Playbook, do yourself a favor and watch it.
All right.
So that is it for today's show.
Cool. Nice.
Thanks for listening. And thank you, Jake Wagner Russell, for creating our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
All right. So our next episode is going to be a bonus episode on an independent movie called Bear With Us. We will also be interviewing the director and writers of the movie, William Stribling and Russ Nickel. So that'll be exciting. It'll be the first time we get to interview filmmakers on the show.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. And then our next Criterion movie we'll be releasing next week is going to be Sallow, or The 120 Days of Sodom.
And real quick on Bear With Us, it's available on Amazon Prime. I'm pretty sure you can rent it on iTunes, but that way you guys have an opportunity to watch it before we do our interview.
Yeah, absolutely, and support independent filmmakers.
Yeah, these guys deserve it for sure.
Yeah, it's a good sit, so definitely give it a shot.
Yeah, and if you want to follow along with what we're watching next, let us know what you think about Red Sparrow. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at casualcinemedia. We have a Facebook group where we talk film and film news and what we're watching and all that stuff. And that's at facebook.com/groups/casualcinemedia. And if you want to email us directly, you can do so at casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Yeah, and make sure you guys go ahead and give us those 5-star reviews, put it in, and we'll draw a name out, hopefully yours, at the end of March. So I guess until next time, see you later.
Bye-bye.
See you later.